Welcome back to the Blurred Wire. Today we are talking about Echo, the show that premiered on Disney Plus as well as Hulu. The MCU's first TVMA official rating for an episode, for a series, and it ended up being pretty intense. But today we're gonna look at it, talk about it, break it down, what I liked, what I didn't like, and all that good stuff. So starting off with Echo, like, I don't know, she's a character that, like, it's kind of surprising that she got her own spinoff because didn't really expect her to after Hawkeye. I think that was always the plan, though. Like, they didn't do that based upon the reaction to her as a character in Hawkeye. They just decided, like, we're gonna give Echo a spinoff in Hawkeye. Like, once we start Hawkeye, she's gonna get her spinoff. And it was okay. I feel like Marvel can't decide. I feel like the MCU and Marvel couldn't decide if they wanted to be, the Netflix series, the Defender series, or if they wanted to be, an Echo series. And it's like, you look at the budget for Echo, right, compared to the budget for Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. Most of those TV shows had a fixed budget of about like $40 million a season, and each episode ended up being like $3 million, right? So for Echo, it also had a production budget of about $40 million, but there are only 5 episodes, so that's like $8 million an episode. Now the Defenders series that combined all 3 was $8 million an episode, but it was a team up. You know what I mean? Like, it was a team up of all of them and fighting the Hand. So that actually kind of made sense. It's like, for the budget of what Echo had, I mean, I don't know exactly what Disney spent all that money on, because I don't really think they needed to. I mean, I don't know. I think fans would have been perfectly fine with a gritty story very similar to Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. And it kind of was. It just, I mean, to me, 5 episodes is probably too short. And it doesn't really feel like anything substantial happened. Just that Kingpin is not angry anymore, I guess, because Maya, like, at the end of the episode, she channeled her Choctaw Indian heritage to heal his pain from his childhood. And I'm like, so Kingpin's not a villain? Or he is still a villain? Gonna be the mayor of New York? It's one of those things that's like, again, they wanted it to be Marvel Spotlight in its own kind of way, kind of separate from everything else. But we all know that the Kingpin running for mayor is going to be a huge storyline in Daredevil and potentially Spider-Man 4. So, at the end of the episode, by teasing him running for mayor, you kind of, you're already establishing that this is not just a Marvel Spotlight thing that's not connected. Like, you've established that you want this to connect somehow. So I think it's like, I don't know, I hate to use the word disappointing. I'd have to decide exactly where I'd rank Echo on my ranks of series and everything. Maybe I just need to rewatch it. But it's hard for me to, like, think back at Echo and be like, yeah, that was really exciting, or that was really good. Because it just really wasn't. I mean, the best thing about it was honestly the Daredevil fight scene. Because it wasn't cut to death. It was like a one-shot, really intense fight. And then he's just gone. And so I think that was another disappointing part, because it's like, I get cameos here and there, and Wilson Fisk obviously had a much bigger presence with Vincent D'Onfrio reprising his role. Like, we all thought Charlie Cox was going to be in Echo and make an appearance. And he didn't really do anything at all. He just fought her, and then she escaped, and Wilson Fisk was like, oh yeah, I fight that guy sometimes. And, it was showing what was going on, I guess, during the blip. But again, it's like, and like one of the showrunners said that Echo was supposed to still be a villain. Now I remember that quote, specifically because, like, Echo is still supposed to be a villain. And they're like, yeah, she's a villain. This isn't going to change anything. We're going to explore it from the side of a villain. She didn't seem like a villain at all. She seemed like a hero now. Like, everything she did, turning on Kingpin, all that stuff, like, she's a hero. And like, it's really hard to take a villain and make a story about them because, again, any main character is usually the protagonist, the one that you're rooting for. That's why Infinity War is so freaking good, because if you Like, if you just called it Thanos, like, just redo Infinity War, but call it Thanos. And these are just, like, all his obstacles to getting the stones. It's like they did it from his perspective. Like, he was the protagonist. But anyway, so Echo is supposed to be the villain, but not really, because she's just a hero by the end. I mean, she's just doing all this good stuff. It's like I kind of wish there was a lot of ways that they could have went with this, especially if they did it over 13 episodes. Because again, there wasn't that much action, and I didn't really get a feeling that much happened. Like, I think I would have much rather seen, like, if Echo went back home, and by, like, the second or third episode, probably the second, honestly, like, the end of this first episode, Kingpin is offering her to come back to New York and be a queenpin. You know, get basically all the business that her father runs, like, move up to the next step. And he does this because, you know, like, that's the thing I love about Kingpin, like, especially the way they set him up in the Daredevil series. He doesn't have to do this for a tactical advantage or because he, you know, wants to keep Maya by his side or keep her in control. Like, he does this because he genuinely cares for her. And he genuinely loves her. And he genuinely thinks that he's like her uncle. Even though he had her father killed, I feel like he looks at Maya like a daughter. And I feel like that could have been explored more. That it's like, yeah, on paper it would have been a bad idea for Kingpin to bring Maya back in and offer her that queenpin role. But at the same time, like, in his mind, she's his kid. That's his daughter. And, you know, it's not exactly the most... And, like, if Maya could have figured that out, you know, she could have accepted it and decided to go to New York. And she could have decided, you know what, I'm going to take over his operation and I'm going to turn all of his guys against him. Right? And we're going to force him out of his own operation. And I'm going to promise everybody, you know, that joins me, you get to move up. And so we could have seen her running crime in New York. And it would have been awesome because then Daredevil could have been the villain. Right? Like, she has to fight Daredevil multiple times because as she's running this crime in New York, planning to take over his empire, Daredevil keeps getting in her way. And she would have been a villain, but Daredevil keeps messing with her operation. She could have kept fighting him, like, off and on, until, like, we get to a climax where, you know, she reveals that, hey, all these men, I turned against you, and now we're going to force you out of your own empire. Because to me, I think for her, also, that would have been more of an ultimate revenge rather than just killing him. Like, shooting him in the eye, like, somehow he survived that. Nobody should ever survive that because the bullet is in your brain. But that's straight from the comics, and that's a little bit of comic lore you'll have to just, you know, set aside. Like, I don't care how big and tough, like, Kingpin is. He can rip a car door off a hinge. You don't survive a gunshot to the eye. But whatever. Anyway, the cooler part would have been if she took over all of his operations from under him and basically forced him out onto the street. Because that would have been, like, the ultimate revenge. Like, you didn't want my father to rise up in your operations. You thought people were starting to pine after him. Well, I got those same people to pine after me, and now I'm in control, and you're out. And then, like, the end could have been her victory. You know, Daredevil was trying to stop her from doing, like, a certain mission, and he doesn't succeed. And now she's in charge of all this stuff. And Kingpin decides, you know, I don't know exactly how he would have done it, but he could have twisted that and used that in his run for mayor. You know, he could have said, like, even made up a story that he was undercover because now he understands the criminal underworld. You know, something with some, like, media stunt, media twist with some loyal patrons that leave the organization and join him in his run for mayor. So then he decides, I'm going to get back at Echo by becoming mayor of New York City. Now, again, in Daredevil, they established that he went to jail. So, like I said, other than getting some corrupt police officers to, you know, claim that he was undercover the entire time and and getting those people on his side, or that, like, he was coerced in some way, you know, it's kind of tough. I think, like, Marvel really wants to do a Mayor of New York storyline with Kingpin. But again, in reality, it's kind of tough just based upon what they did with his character. Like, if they knew that all the way back when they did Daredevil, they never should have had him go to prison. But they did. And it's the choice that they made. But like, I never would have had him be defeated or went to prison, because you really can't be a mayor if you have a felony. That's just the law. But anyway, I think I would have enjoyed that much more if that was Echo. Gotten to see her fighting Daredevil and him kind of being like the villain. But, I don't know if Charlie Cox didn't want to come back for all of that. I mean, I think he would have. And I think it would have made the show a lot more interesting because, and we could have seen flashbacks to her past. We could have seen her bring in people from Oklahoma, some of her loyal people, into the organization. And because to me, it just feels like we kind of got, I don't want to say a mess, but it wasn't coherent. I think that's the best way to describe it. It happened, it occurred, and I was actually starting to get really excited for it because of the TVMA rating and like how close they wanted it to be to Daredevil, Kingpin, all of that stuff. But it just kind of ended up like, just kind of sliding along. Like I think like it's part of the problem with Marvel. Like we kind of expect for groundbreaking stuff, especially with Loki. And so when something just kind of like hem-haws, it kind of feels worse. But it's just like the highs and lows with Marvel are just super high and super low. Like for me this year, I mean, for a lot of people, Guardians 3 was a super high. For me, it was good, but it wasn't that high of a high. But like Quantumania was a super low. Secret Invasion was a super low. But for me, Loki season 2 obviously was fantastic, super high. And the Marvels I thought was also fantastic, super high. So, it's kind of hard to describe exactly where Marvel is going. And like, I think they're thinking their solution is like, maybe just don't worry about that. But it's like, that's the whole point of why we do this, because we want to know like where everything's going. We have so many storylines that have yet to ever pay off. So I guess we'll see. We're in a Marvel hiatus for a while. I know it's been a minute since I recorded. I'm gonna get back to my regular schedule. But let me know what you think. Comment what you thought. Your thoughts on Echo, if you liked it, if you enjoyed it. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow for more content. And we might do a thing where I rank my favorite Marvel properties while we're kind of in this lull. I'm not sure if I'll do it like each one will be an episode, or if we'll do, a section of them by episode. Might do something like that. But while we're in a lull trying to put out content and stuff, it might be pretty cool to take a look at that. So thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for listening and joining in. And until next time.